Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Kalen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. Hey, Sam.
Kalen, how the hell are you?
Doing okay.
Yeah.
How are you?
Wow.
Feels like it's been a few weeks. We had a few technical issues, so we didn't have a show for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And we're back.
We are back. We're better, stronger.
Are we?
Faster, and more compassionate than ever.
Yes. Lead with compassion.
Always.
Is how we like to roll.
And it's just been Easter.
So we need to bring the knives out.
Yeah, right. Well, how was your Easter? Did you have fun? Did you do anything?
I kind of was. I don't want to call sick. I've kind of have sleeping trouble, so I've used various different sort of aids, melatonin, gummies, all of that. But I had a back issue, so I took some back pain and anti-inflammatory medicine as well, and combined it all. Like I kind of did it sort of out of habit.
Yeah.
But I ended up sleeping for 10 hours, which I guess would sound good, but I didn't actually wake up for another almost day and a half.
Right.
Like I was just in this fog. And yeah, so I spent the weekend literally lying around, unable to formulate thought.
I did that last weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend before. I slept for 15 hours.
Wow.
And I didn't really wake up like for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
I just didn't. But you know what I've done recently? It's the last week and a half or so. I got a grounding mat. So
we've done grounding mats before.
Okay,
yeah.
So I'm sleeping on it now.
Yeah.
So you just have to touch it and it grounds out your whole body, helps with inflammation.
Did you notice a difference?
Oh my God, day one.
Really?
Day one, I noticed a difference. I haven't not slept with it since.
Yeah.
And you know, it's hard to be for sure, but I really feel like my sleeping has been better. I feel like inflammation in my joints is better. Like I wake up feeling more able to move freely. And yeah, if people haven't looked into grounding mats for sleeping and inflammation,
interesting.
It's a really cost-effective, cheap.
Yeah, I had one. I had a grounding blanket that was plugged into the ground of the outlet.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Right? You got a plug with one thing that goes
goes into the ground.
Yeah.
I didn't really notice a difference.
You
but
didn't, eh? Okay.
Doesn't mean there wasn't a difference. But it's hearing that it makes a difference for you kind of makes me want to revisit it again.
Yeah, it's not like a difference like all of a sudden you feel like $1 million. But if it helps reduce your inflammation so that your own internal body systems can work and heal.
Yeah.
And especially if you can do it overnight like that. I mean, you can always ground for free, just, touch the ground with your skin.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah.
But how often do we do that?
Well, there's always a barrier. Like you've got your shoes or your slippers because when I was doing that cold plunging in the ocean, it was good to, get into the ground. And I felt, there was a benefit there. So I definitely think there is something to it. But again, in this world of all this new age, I don't even want to call it new age stuff.
It's not really new age. It's just the ground energy that.
No. I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm talking about how in this influencer culture, everybody's got a new way to do things and new, better and interpretation of science and
I'm ground maxing. Does that make it sound more modern?
Yeah, I guess.
Ground maxing.
I don't know. I just kind of, I get fatigue over all of these things. It's just like, okay, well, how many times can you recreate the same thing when science has sort of solved a lot of stuff? But if you discount the science, then you're left in this sort of world of needing to pursue stuff that has already been pursued. Like I think a lot of the stuff, the answers have already been answered on, but now people don't believe those answers. So now they're coming up with their new methods and, well, you try this or try that, especially with like supplements and all of that kind of stuff too.
Well, quite possibly we have the answer, but not the complete answer. Like if you take and if you take any drug right now that helps with anything,
Yeah.
it all comes from nature originally. It's
Yeah.
being copied by chemists who isolate the part that helps, but they don't bring in all the other components in that plant, say, because all chemicals that we ingest are coming from plants, really.
Yeah.
But it's not just that isolated component that you want. You want everything that goes with it to support your body while that one thing works. So
Yeah.
if you're a chemist and you're taking this one component out and you're hyper kind of dosing it to address an issue, yeah, it might address that issue, but it's not doing it in a way that supports your body.
Yeah.
And
Unintended consequences.
Yeah. So I think that, yes, we have a lot of scientific expertise in how to fix things, but it's not the complete picture maybe all the time. I'm not suggesting you go out and buy all the supplements you hear on every podcast. By the way, I think we're being sponsored by AG1 now. But I truly believe that taking supplements as opposed to taking a drug, generally speaking, is going to be kind of better for you in the long run.
I would agree with that. I guess my thinking on it is how any kind of drug or even natural remedy, how your body absorbs it, and then what it does with it. So if you say you need vitamin C, you can take, and they say you need 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. I don't know what it is, 500. I don't know what it is, but say it's 500. So your body can take this supplement. You're going to get it naturally through the food you eat. But then if you need more, you're going to take the supplement.
Right.
So if you need 500, it's taking 1,000. What happens with the 1,000? Like, does your body just excrete it? So why are you paying for this vitamin C that you're not using, but you think it's, I'm taking 1,000 milligrams, but your body only absorbs 200 of it per se.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. So at some point, the commercialization of this stuff and these new ideas and this, when you try this, try that, over time, our average age of life expectancy has grown. So, and that's down to science, really. There's only explanation: science, healthcare, advancements in this kind of stuff.
Maybe clean water has something to do with it too.
Maybe. I mean, well, there's a lot. All of those, all of that stuff. Poverty and all of those outcomes do extend life expectancy. But I just kind of go, like, when you've got a commercial application for this stuff, I think that's where you can tell yourself a lot of things,
right?
That will reinforce what you think. But is it true?
For sure. Like, that works across the spectrum.
Yeah, on any of it.
Yeah.
Right. And at what point are you going to ask those questions before you spend the money or after you spend the money, or and then where's your objective measure of whether the grounding sheet works? So I think if you feel it works, I think that is huge, because there is a mindset that if you believe it, then it is true. And it's probably going to change your perspective on how you slept and your energy levels will make you feel better. So I think in that aspect, the placebo effect is still a legitimate effect. Then when you get down to the brass tacks and science of it, is it actually moving the needle? And then is it a cost that's detrimental to you? Like, if you look at Ozempic or these GLP-1, kind of what they're calling super drugs now, So I believe they're around $500 a month.
That sounds like corporate marketing.
Sure.
A super
Sure.
drug. And
Sure.
especially when it's just meant to reduce your appetite.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can get into the weeds on what it's doing and what it's not doing. But if you think about, so if you are obese or if you're diabetic or if you have some of these other related illnesses that are kind of tied into overall health, life expectancy, whatnot, and then you've got a drug, like just take it at its face value that obviously it's helping people, it's causing weight loss, which, you know, arguably could be beneficial or whatever, and lowering blood sugar for diabetics, which can't necessarily be a bad thing. There's some evidence of it improving, you know, cognitive function as well as cardiac outcomes. And so there's other drugs that are now not being required because they're on it. So it's $500 a month. So maybe you're going to eat $200 or $300 less in food, you know, that you would need. So, okay, is it economical? I don't think at $500 a month, people can afford it. But if you look at spending that money, assuming that it is what it says it is or what people are saying it is, like, who knows? Like,
and there's no long-term
sure
side effects from changing your insulin levels.
Sure, exactly. Like, who knows? You know, anytime you have like a, you know, some sort of, you know, interruption in nature, you know, and this is what you're doing, you're inputting or you're preventing something from happening in order for you to get a result. And time will tell whether it's working or not, but like, is it worth like, if you can get an extra 10 years and so you're going to spend $6,000 a year on this drug, and maybe your net cost of that is actually only $3,000 because of other savings you're going to get from not eating as much or whatever,
right.
And or benefits of your cardiac health or any of these other things, then maybe it is worth doing it. But then, so you apply that to the vitamin industry or the supplemental industry or the health industry and all this stuff, and you're like, okay, well, how much time, energy is it going to cost me? And then how do I measure the results? Is it a placebo result or is it actually a measurable impact? I think the early data on those GLP-1s is a measurable impact with some side benefits from it. So obviously, you know, we probably need, I mean, they've been around now for a significant period of time.
Yeah,
there's enough people taking them.
They'd be meant for people with diabetes, right? It's to help.
Well, there's sure. There
it's
is
not meant just for weight loss. Now it's
no.
A commercially viable drug that really, if people got off all the processed foods and started eating better, maybe they wouldn't need to.
Yeah, I think people in Japan and Korea don't have the same problems that people in North America have, especially with, you know, diabetes and heart and stroke and these types of things, which is purely related to diet, which then goes back to our food pyramid and the corporations that are involved in how we eat and how we process, you know, even when it comes down to grains and wheat and the climate. You know, if you look at all the grass been removed and put in wheat stock, like, it's great for food production, but it's not good for the carbon capture.
No, it's not. And when we spray our crops with things, it has a lot of side effects that we're just starting to learn about now, or that we've known about for a long time, but now they're just being talked about. Like, how often have you heard someone say, "Oh, I can't eat wheat, but I went to Italy,
exactly,
and I had the most amazing pasta, and it didn't make me feel bad at all." Like, you hear that all the time because it's a real thing. Because they're not spraying their wheat with glyphosate.
Well, they've changed in some cases. They've changed the DNA of it. Like, when you go back to the ancient grains, right? Like, getting access to those ancient grains and those libraries of ancient grains are a concern. And when you think about food security and what's happening in the world today and the actual real risk of food insecurity globally because of what's happening.
Well, we depend so much on things like sprays and pesticides and fertilizers, and what happens when that becomes restricted and we don't have the same access to,
Yeah.
say, all the fertilizers that
Yeah.
we're so accustomed to for making the volume of food that we ingest
Yeah.
or that we process and that we sell. We're not ingesting that.
No.
We throw away probably maybe 30-40% of the food we buy,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So,
Or the food that we produce.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then not all of it has the same nutritional value. So you're having to eat more of it because your body needs the nutrition it needs if it's going to function properly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting in this day and age, obviously, you know, in our present time, we've just gone through, you know, a very weird episode where open genocide and civilization extinction is discussed by a global leader.
Yeah. Happy
And
Easter.
yeah, happy Easter, which is, you know, and then when you think about, okay, obviously it's hard to even wrap your head around the timeline we're on and the impacts of all that stuff to the psyche, but also just where are we in the world where this is allowed to happen so openly and brazenly and with seemingly zero consequences. And then you tie back into, you know, the Strait of Hormuz and the flow, not just the flow of oil, but the flow of food that goes through that, and all of the, you know, the farming stuff that comes from that, and the fertilizer, and all of this kind of stuff.
I heard that about 30% of the world trade in fertilizer moves through the Hormuz Strait.
Yeah.
The Strait of Hormuz. And as a coffee guy, thinking that, things are getting a little bit better, prices are evening out a little bit now we're looking at a new threat. Not only is transportation going to skyrocket because of the price of oil, because that's being restricted in this one little strait, but now big agricultural countries that import most of their fertilizer, like Brazil, are having to make really hard choices because their access is being restricted almost completely now. 30% of the world's trade of fertilizer goes through that strait, and that's global.
Yeah.
So that gets spread out really evenly. Most countries make a bit of their own.
Yeah.
But a lot of countries are now thinking, well, now we have to have a fertilizer security stockpile.
Yeah.
Just like oil, just in order to produce the same amount of food at the same cost. And those two things, the cost and the quantity of production, are going to be very different anyway. Like they're tied, but they're not the same thing, right? Like you can choose not to purchase a really expensive fertilizer, or you just don't have access to it anymore, and all of a sudden you're growing organically, but your crops are diminished. You can't call it organic because you can't.
Yeah, that's a marketing thing.
All kinds of legal reasons.
Yeah,
but your crops are going to diminish. Your output's going to go down significantly.
Yeah, well, you're producing food, so if you aren't at the same time as the food production drops, and you think about it, like now's the time that fertilizer gets planted, or fertilizer gets put into the ground. So that's for the yield that's coming up now. So if you don't have the fertilizer, the yield shrinks by, I don't know, 30-40%. I'm assuming.
Yeah, and there's no more fertilizer that can fill up the tanks that you just depleted.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden your crops are less, then what are you doing? And these are businesses too. So in a lot of cases, they're either exporting some of their food or they're being purchased domestically. So that's going to impact their bottom line, their number of people they can employ, their crops are less. So, you know, it's just a trickle down system, but the underpinning of it is sustenance that people need to live.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you don't at the same time address the food waste issue, then I think if you drop 30% in your crop yield, there is an argument that you can use that food more efficiently, but that doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And people's
It might
patterns.
have to, though. It might have to happen overnight. Maybe it's a slap in the face and we have to change and we can't waste so much. And maybe grocery stores have to stop doing what they're doing by just putting out the best food and then throwing out the rest.
Yeah, well, it's like we talked about this before, where France has, laws that prevent that. Like you have to sell all the food. You can't pick and choose, the ugly and hold it back and use it for some other purpose. Food is meant to feed humans.
Yeah.
And I think that is an important aspect. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. So when you're looking at, the flow, so this has always been a threat. Like food security has always been an issue. We've talked about it here, how Vancouver Island used to produce 40% of its food consumption, like island consumption.
Yeah, which was,
and now it's like
just
10%.
And that was only back in the 60s.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago.
No, well, relatively speaking, it seems like a long time ago, but historically, that's just a blip.
Yeah.
But to see it drop that much, like how do you rebuild that? So now, when there's a fertilizer constraints, that's going to apply everywhere equally. Obviously Canada is abundant. I think we produce 30% of the world's supply of fertilizer.
Yeah, we've got an abundance of potash, but it's for export. I think a lot of that just goes for export, just like every other thing we have.
So then do we become more
fish?
Isolationist, where we're then going to be using that, and then what happens to all of it? I mean, this is like the fact that we find ourselves in this position, to me, is a failure.
Yeah.
And it's no different than failing when it comes to forest management with forest fires. Like the science has told us that these climate things were going to happen for a long time. And food security is also a climate issue too.
Yeah.
Like we're in this situation, not just because of the Strait of Hormuz being shut down and the reckless, global BS that's coming out of the United States. It's a climate issue. And when you look at the issues that are happening in South America and in these other areas and in Africa, and where food security and climate are totally connected, that people are being displaced because of it. Mm-hmm. Like people aren't showing up at the US border because they're just like, I want to become an American because America is so great. No, they're desperate
because
and they're escaping.
From is worse.
Yeah, they're escaping all kinds of things, but their ability to work and ability to feed themselves are a big part of that. If you look at Somalia and what's happened with commercial fishing along that coast in Africa, it's been so depleted that they have to travel like days to find new fishing grounds. So they're not able to provide food for their people. So they're having to go elsewhere. And that's where pirating has come in. Right. And all this kind of stuff can all be linked back to industry and over prioritizing commercialization versus people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know much about the Somalian fish market, but is there depletion being caused by other countries commercially fishing in their waters, or just right outside their waters?
Originally,
taking everything and leaving nothing for the people.
Yeah, so then they're having to take these boats, which also run on fuel, so it costs more to run, but they're going like miles and miles and miles, like hundreds of miles away from their traditional fishing grounds, because all of the fish that they're able to catch before now are gone, because these big fishing boats have come through commercialization. And that in itself, when one of the purposes of government to me is to protect people. Mm-hmm. So stopping actors that don't have good intent. Like doing business pure for profit may seem like, oh, that's what business is for, is profit. But profit without people is a recipe for disaster. So somebody needs to step in and prevent corporations from abusing people to the point where their pursuit of profit is on the backs of the people they need in order to even run their business. So, and there's so many examples of it, in this day and age, like, we've jumped the shark because now, and the U.S. is a perfect case study for it. When I think it was 2008 that there's a Supreme Court case called Citizens United, where they basically made corporations people, so that with electoral donations now. So I believe in 2008, corporations donated up to that point $140 million per election cycle, to influence elections and get their preferred candidate in power or whatever. In 2023, I think that number was 1.4 billion.
Wow.
So okay, so
so gross.
Who is looking after the people? And then when you look at the information, so how are you finding out accurate information? And in the day and age of influencer culture and this stuff, anybody with a keyboard and a voice, and maybe they're attractive, they got a good personality, they're good salespeople, all these things that are good attributes, but are now being used to fuel this information gap, and they're being funded directly by these social media companies who are sharing their revenue with them. So now there's no inducement for accuracy. The inducements for clicks. So then you get this rage baiting material that comes out, and everybody's mad about this topic or this subject. To me, it's priority from the top to the bottom, where, okay, what is the most pressing emergency today globally? And then what's the most pressing emergency, in your country? And what's the most pressing emergency in your province and your city? And you kind of go down. And I think ultimately we need to get back to dealing with what's happening in our own community to make us more resilient to some of these global things, and also understand that we can do action in our own community that can really impact our life way more than us worried about what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. I think you still need to be aware of what's happening over there, but you need to protect yourself. So as much as you need to your top priorities and work your way down, you need to also go from the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of clarify what you were saying.
Yeah.
So you're saying, like, definitely prioritize global problems first, things that'll influence everyone, but
like wiping out Iran with a nuclear bomb
starting
is relevant
with taking care of your own home first.
Yeah.
And then that care that you spend there spreads.
Yeah.
Because care does spread. Because
100%.
Care is love.
Well, and you get more out of life too. Like, I think everybody's suffering from some mental health issues, and when you look at all of the noise that we're being subjected to in real time, immediately, like I'm in these Lego videos of Iran. God. They're hilarious, but I'm actually feeling like I get way more information out of these Iranian Lego movies than I do out of anywhere else, and that is a problem.
I got a question for you. I did see the first one that came out that was like supposedly made in Iran or by their account, by their intelligence agency or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I see so many other ones that are they all coming from the same source, or is
it's apparently this group of 11. I think they're university students. There was a video, and they kind of blacked out their faces.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
And they're basically, from the University of Tehran.
Okay.
And they're kind of independent, but obviously they're not independent. Like, these are pretty high level videos that are being produced.
They're certainly educational.
Well, I think it's
right. I mean, they are certainly making one perspective very clear.
Yeah, which I think is refreshing, because you're being lied to.
Yeah.
So having the counterpoint, okay, here's what's really happened. Just like, you look at, not getting into the weeds of the details of it, but their pilot shot down. So they needed to send in these two personnel carriers and helicopters and planes to find this one guy that apparently was 110 miles away from where this was actually happening. And then you see these Lego videos, is like they actually really just tried to steal uranium. And there was an operation to steal uranium. So it's like you created this war to steal. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing? Because it's not just the United States now. Like, it hasn't been for a long time. But when you've got that much influence over the world, and it's just on a whim of some guy who's basically been a grifter his entire life, that's well documented.
Yeah, well documented.
And he gets a show called The Apprentice, and now everybody seems to be under the impression that, people with gold toilets are successful, which is total BS. Like, if someone has to tell you how rich they are, that's the first sign of a scam, right? Like, rich people don't behave that way.
And who the hell cares?
And who cares how rich you are?
That's
like,
not
none of
the
it
point.
is.
Like, what have you done to help anyone? It's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, those Lego videos are striking a real chord with, I think, the right people. Like, I really do. I think that it's brilliant because they're capturing the eyeballs and the attention of so many more people than if they just came out with all that information and had it documented.
Yeah, exactly. Or just said it. No, it's the way, like, it's a genius way to counter what I think is agreed is total utter BS. There's no reason for them to have done what they did. It was a bad idea. And it doesn't say that Iranian government, like, the Iranian people are different than the Iranian government. It's the same thing with the United States. The United States people are different than the U.S. government. Although, the reason why that government is in power is because it's the people. And you could argue whether there's legit elections or not legit elections, but even if because in my view, the elections aren't legit, like, there's immense amount of corruption and gerrymandering and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, the people are still in control. It's no different with the social media companies. Like, we all scroll and we're all on these things and we support the algorithm and we're buying from Amazon, all this kind of stuff. Like, the second we stop doing that, all of this changes, because now all of a sudden we've got their attention.
Right.
Like, if everybody just keeps supporting the same sort of corruption, then, without any guardrails. So the perfect system, like, it's not perfect. Of course it isn't perfect. But when you set up a criteria, like, the US is actually a great example because they had separations of power. There's explicit rules that, prevented religion from being a part of it. The Justice Department is different than the executive branch, and the Congress is different than, and all they're supposed to be independent.
All these checks and balances.
All these checks and balances, and proper taxation, right, and oversight. So when is the last time you've heard a corporation being broken up because of an abuse, monopolization of power? That hasn't happened in my memory for a long, long, long time. They've given out fines. But if somebody's made
that oil company way back when, owned by the Rockefellers or something.
Yeah, it was.
That was broken up, but then they just owned
Standard Oil.
Yeah, Standard Oil. And then they just.
But that's fine. That's fine if you do it. There's a reason why you break it apart, and they can own all the little bits of part of it, but it prevents a conglomerate from being bigger. Now we've got corporations that are worth trillions. Mm-hmm. $1 trillion corporation is not unheard of. They have more money than governments, and there's no guardrails. So now they're able to influence it with unlimited funding. So if you're Facebook, for example, and you don't want oversight, let's deal with Elon Musk. So if you're Elon Musk and you've gotten billions of dollars of government subsidies for your car company, and you've massed it into a carbon capture event, because that's what they've done, and basically made more money selling carbon credits than they had selling cars. And it's all being funded by government subsidies. And then you aren't paying your share of taxes, and you wash, rinse, and repeat this. And then you get control of government agency that's looked to oversight, and you completely gut it. And then also all of the investigations into what you're doing all of a sudden are all gone because they're not funded anymore and you've shut them all down. That's a real problem. So
Sure is.
how, but we as individuals have total control over it and what it's organizing. And Tag Stormer, who's a historian, and I think he lives in London. He's American.
Sure, what's his name?
Tag Stormer.
Tag?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the historians are the most interesting. Like Heather Cox Richardson, again, she does a nightly briefing and super interesting because history tells us what predicts the future.
Yeah.
Because human nature is, the inputs that we come in and the ideas that we come with aren't original. So they're cyclical, right? So the behaviors patterns are easily predicted. So when you look at what's happening in the U.S. right now and what is this move to fascism, it already is probably a fascist state.
Well, you got the new DOJ in there now.
Well, it's consolidation of power.
Who's saying that
there's no accountability.
He needs to go after the Trump's enemies.
Yeah, of course, because he loves Trump.
Yeah.
And that in itself is disqualifying.
Yeah.
So getting back to the guardrails part of it is I think that system can work provided that you protect those guardrails. And it's the freedom of the press is a big part of that. So the first thing that happens historically in these situations is that these sort of like dictator wannabes or king wannabes attack the media first, because that's how they need to counter any facts. And that is the first step. And that happened as soon as Trump went down that escalator. And it's been happening. Like, this has started with Reagan. Yeah, so this goes way back. Right? No, it isn't. This goes way back. But it is basically the rot that capitalism brings. Unchecked capitalism. Because if you have checks and balances, this can work. But in order for us as a society to make it great again, we need to go back to proper taxation. We need to go back to all of those safeguards of democracy, which is freedom of the press, and invest in it. So when you talk about defunding the CBC, I view the opposite. You actually probably need to fund more, nationalized media, allow them to be independent, right? But follow the rules of their own guidelines. They all have their own guidelines of independence and fact checking and multiple sourcing and all this stuff that works if it's allowed to work uncorrupted. But as soon as you start calling them fake, then all of a sudden you're demeaning, these career people that all of a sudden, and you're being yelled at and you're being roadblocked, and then you're in some cases being arrested and being killed. Like, if you think of how many press Israel is killed, like it's more press than any other war in the 150 years, all dead within a 5 or 6 year period.
See,
it's incredible.
How do you control the freedom of speech when like those guardrails would have to be so secure and so trustworthy, and who puts those in place and who kind of monitors those? Is it the government? Well,
the government is the people. Like, this is the thing that you got to understand is, like, soon as it plays into their narrative that if it's not us and them, it's us. So
it should be, but it's not. It's become not that lately. Like, it really feels like,
because it's called corruption, bro.
Well, even if you look at in Canada, how the Liberal Party is drawing more people over to their side to get a super majority right before they want to pass Bill C-15.
All those things are,
but that's not how democracy works. Democracy is we vote people in, whether we're voting for a party or an individual. We associate them naturally with the party that they're saying they're from. So if we in Victoria vote for someone in a certain party and they go and they switch partway through their mandate, should they be allowed to change? Because that
100%.
But that goes against what the people put them in for.
And guess what? Thankfully, thankfully and not thankfully, we have an election every 4 years. So the reality of it is like the problem, and I get why people say that, and I get why that's an issue, but this has happened throughout our entire history.
It happens occasionally.
No. It happens all the time. And if you actually look at how many people have switched parties, there's so many cases of it happening over the years. The reason why it feels different now is because there's so much polarization and tribalizing those views.
Yep.
So when your party becomes your identity, then it seems like really bad.
Yeah.
Like, this is horrible. How dare you do this? Like, it's like switching, if you're an Alabama fan or like a Vancouver Canucks fan and you move to Calgary, it's like, I'm now going to be a Calgary fan. No, I'm probably always going to be a Vancouver fan in my heart because that's where you've identified. So this identity politics that happens, it's there for a purpose. Like, this is the denigration of systems, because it creates that rift where you were an NDP, you're Joe Blow. So you believe that their integrity matters. So whatever they've decided, you've voted for that person.
Yeah, but
that's just the reality.
That's how it should be, maybe, but that's not.
That's how it's always been. They've always had, the reason why it's built that way is for that specific reason.
But they call it party politics because
they do now.
I grew up in an NDP household.
Yeah, and you would never vote any other way.
I haven't voted NDP in 20 years.
No, I know, but the theory of it.
But the theory of it is you stick to your team and then you vote for that party, right? You vote for your team in a democratic system that's set up so that despite the individual, we should be voting for the individual. 100% I agree. But I think by our nature and by our history has shown us that we really don't. We vote for the party and we vote for how maybe we've always voted or your parents voted. And I don't agree with it. I don't think it's the right way to vote. But I think that that's intrinsically how people do vote right now. And so when we want a strong democracy, this is my point right there. Okay. So does a strong democracy support, because you voted for an NDP candidate, that if that candidate wants to switch parties, what is a truer form of democracy? I think that seat needs to come up for re-election right away if they want to switch, and let the people decide, because it's democracy.
Well, then because that's not democracy.
But the people didn't vote.
They voted for that person.
They voted for the NDP person.
No, I know, but it doesn't matter. This is the problem. So this is my exact point about democracy. So you expect leadership as an individual. So you can have good leaders in one party, great leaders in another party, bad leaders in one party, bad leaders in another party. Mm-hmm. So when you put yourself up to lead, you're leading your constituents. So if your constituents is Victoria or whatever the district is, those are my constituents. All right. So I am aligning my values and I'm supporting, Kaylin McNeil, is supporting an NDP party, for example, or Liberals, say, for example. And I'm like, I align with those values align with me.
Because you voted for that person, right?
Because I've aligned my views with this party. Okay. So I'm running as a candidate for this party, but I am the person. So I am like, the party is not an individual. The party has a whole different ecosystem than I as an individual do. So if my party is doing something that I don't agree with, how is it democratic that I all of a sudden now need to go back to the polls, or I've been entrusted with leadership? I am the MLA. If I want to sit as an independent partway through, I should be able to do that. If I want to switch parties, I've been entrusted with the power to do that. It's legal. It's within the system. Mm-hmm. And it actually, the erosion is when you align with the party. That is the erosion of democracy, because parties are just a way to aggregate viewpoints.
Yeah.
right? The individuals where leadership comes in, and that's where true democracy comes. No democracy has been changed by a party, but democracy has been changed by individuals. And this is where we need to get back to that, where whatever the individual is first, then their party politics behind it. So if your party has moved away from what you view, or the world has changed in a way that, hey, we need to wake up to this, and we need to do less bickering and attacking each other and start working together on a coalition that works best for everybody. And that is the way it used to work back in the day, when it wasn't so party centric, and when your team or your flag wasn't so out forward. It was actually, who are the individuals behind, because that is who you're voting for. So you could think you're voting for the party, but in the end of the day, you should be voting for the individual, because that is who's going to be, you're going to be trusting their values. And they're like, how many people, I'm voting with my party, but those parties don't align with your interests, especially in your community. So if your party is espousing, anti-immigration stuff, for example, and you just don't align with that because you have a community that requires, immigrant labor, and the fabric, if you're in Montreal or Toronto, or even in Victoria, where, we're not a very ethnically diverse city, but can benefit from that diversity. Isn't that a good thing? And if I'm representing my constituents, why am I ignoring my constituents' reality because of my party politics? Right? Like, that is the problem. Is like, you didn't vote a party, you vote for the individual.
It kind of makes me wonder why that person would get behind a party that has a basis in something that they didn't believe in to begin with.
This is the erosion of democracy.
Right.
You can't get in unless
we need individuals.
Yes.
And I am not a party guy. Like, I stopped being a party guy when I was like 16.
But how easy is it to fall into that vibe that you remove the independence of the individual? People should be able to vote their conscience.
Absolutely.
If you've elected them in, and because if you're in Mississauga, Ontario, or if you're in, Squamish, BC, the people in those areas have far different issues that they're dealing with.
Yeah. So even if you're in the same party,
those party globally could be I've decided that this is what we're going to do. Our platform is this, and this. Yeah. But that doesn't meet my obligation as who I'm representing. And you represent everybody, the spectrum. You represent the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP, the Greens, all of them. All are in whether they voted for you or not. And this is the dangerous slippery slope that I take issue with, is when you prevent someone to switch parties, or you make it cumbersome, or even overly cumbersome from the standpoint of, the period of time where you're allowed, like, literally every election cycle, in our country, typically it's 4-year election cycles, and it's a lot of it is in law. There's obviously circumstances where if you don't have majority, things can happen federally, but every 4 years, provincially, there's an election, right? It's on a calendar. So your first year, when you're in there, you're figuring stuff out. The second year, kind of making some policy. The third year is probably you're getting into the good parts of the job where you can actually make some change. And all of a sudden, you're running for election again. Right. So how is that better for it to call an election, or just deal with the fact you've elected this person? They've now switched. Guess what? You've only got a year, 2 years, 3 years to wait, and you can vote them out, right? Like, way you go. But as soon as you go, I need that person I voted for this party, then all of a sudden you've removed the individual and also the accountability to the people that elected them, right? So even if you think of the version, I elected an NDP person. No, you elected Joe Blow. You elected Kalen McNeil for this. So he's the person that I'm expect to be able to vote their conscience, vote for what their population wants, right? And if they don't align, guess what? Next election's coming up.
But once that individual is in politics and they are part of a party, then they have a party whip who tells them how to vote. And if they don't vote with a party, they're on the back bench, and then they don't have a vote, and then you've taken away all their peoples in their ridings, ability to be heard in the House.
I know, but that's not a reason to stop their independence.
No, it's
Like-
not a. It's a reason to increase their independence. It's a
Yes.
reason to maybe look at the whole political system
Yes.
and the party system and maybe think of a different one. I mean,
I think you go back to everybody's got to vote, and everybody can, you have an option to vote. If you agree with the party line, then agree with it. If you don't, then don't agree with it. Because as soon as you are forced to do that, then you literally are subjected to corruption, because who knows what the message is behind the scenes as a party, like what your goals are, what your objectives are. But if you remove that independence, then you've really detached your community from the decisions, because now you've just got a puppet.
And that's my point, is I think we have a bunch of puppets who run in party politics, and that's where the party whip and like everyone votes the same way. I mean, it's baked into our system right now, and we need to release that.
Yeah, well, you need to go back to the traditional values that are aligned with it. And this is where you got to end the tribalism, because it's so easy to create, especially in this day and age of technology and information. It's so easy to create your wedge issues that then builds your tribe, and then everything becomes about the wedge versus what's best for the population. And you can't make decisions that are long-term beneficial to a society in these short-term increments where you're calling, other pop-up elections because someone's decided to vote with their conscience. And now all of a sudden, okay, people voted for a party. No, people voted for the individual. That's why their name is first and their party is second. Like, that is, you elect people. We're a people first, democracy. We should be.
We should be.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind democracy, but that's not how democracy works, I don't think.
Because
think
it's been co-opted by corporations and special interests and this tribalism that
absolutely.
You just started advocating at the beginning of this segment.
I don't know if I was advocating tribalism.
Well, because you're saying, well, if they switch parties, you voted for that party, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm like, you voted for that individual first, not the party first.
But can't you see that if that, like, when every party votes a certain way, despite the individual who's in that party, if they have to vote a certain way, then changing parties is a big deal, because you're not taking your personal opinions that you got elected upon. Like, if the electorate was to vote for an individual, they happen to be part of the NDP party, and they got pulled away by the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
Well, now that person still has to vote with the Conservative Party. They can not vote with the NDP because they've changed.
Sounds
sides.
like that person is someone that should get elected because they're independent thinker.
Well, except they got, yes, but they can't vote independently.
Yeah, they can. They voted independently by saying, I don't agree with my party. I agree with this party and I support their politics.
Yeah, but there's a lot of nuance, and it's not all about the wedge issues or the top three issues.
But it usually comes down to it.
Yeah,
If you think about somebody who's going to make that big of a...
should.
Well, but you're electing an individual to think for themselves. So as soon as you say you can't think for themselves anymore...
Utopically.
It's not even utopia, it's in practice. Because our system allows for this to happen. But all of a sudden now people, when it happens to... when conservative... Like... Back in, I think it was like the early 2000s, a whole bunch of liberals switched over to the conservatives. So it's like when that happened, that's just the way it is. But now it's happening the other way. And it's like, wait a minute. No, our system has always allowed that, which I think is the way the system's working. As soon as you try to infringe on that and basically try to change the rules to not allow that to happen and act like it's anti-democratic, it's the exact definition of democracy that is being co-opted, you know? And when you look at it from that lens, it's like, yeah. So guess what? When you're voting for somebody, you're voting for an individual. Like, obviously there's times where you vote like if, for example, the Conservatives have like a majority or the Liberals have a majority and you're not happy with them. I was not happy with Trudeau at all. And I've been vocal about it and the reasons why and all that stuff, but I'm far left leaning in all of my ideas and social policies and all that kind of stuff. But I can be not happy with a lack of leadership. That's an individual's leader who basically, in my mind was very bad for democracy and eroded our democracy by creating unnecessary wedge issues. And the truckers is the prime example of just not going and just addressing it and dealing with it, demonizing them, doing all that kind of stuff. It's just, that's anti-democratic. Like, if you're a leader for everybody. And that's something that Trump does. So like, how do you get to say, okay, that's okay here, but not there? It's like, no, it's wrong everywhere.
Well, if we want individuals, if we want to vote for the best candidates, we have to, we can't have party politics.
No.
And
no, but this framework is there. So there's party alignment and you can set it as an independent, you can set all that kind of stuff. If you have a very, if you're a strong leader, you can get elected as an independent, no problem. There's examples of independents that have, continually stayed independent and won
their seats.
Yeah, and actually have some good influence. Especially in our parliamentary system, you can have a minority that has control over it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, cooperating with other parties should be
like, are you talking about the kingmaker position where you got a minority government?
Yeah.
2 or 3 people can hold the power of an entire government.
What you have to do is you have to negotiate. That's just it.
Yeah.
So
communication
and compromise and all that stuff. And that to me is what democracy is all about, because we're fortunate enough to have a spectrum of ideas, and everybody thinks that this is their perfect plan and this is the way we should run things. But the best results come when you cooperate, so that you're addressing certain issues and you're not over emphasizing one party's issues over another party's issues, because there's always unintended consequences in reality.
Well, and they're party issues. They're not Canadian issues necessarily.
No, for sure. And different objectives, because it doesn't play to this category, or, we got to get this, all these like micro analysis of all this data, and, we got to do this, and, this plays well over here. It's just bullshit. Just think about what's good and do that.
And where did the party politic come from to begin with? Like, why is there basically 3 or 4 choices? That's not all the issues we have are 3 or 4, and that's not all the different perspectives that we can be approaching all of our issues from. I would argue that we need far more independent politics, not party politics. And I always like to
see. Now you're going all the way back to the other side of it.
No, I think that we're in agreement.
You started, but you started with if they switch parties,
But I just
that's putting party and part of
it's all about the parties, then, right? It's not about the individual.
Exactly.
And I'm saying we need to abandon the party politic of it, and the individual can go and they can go anywhere they want, but they can't vote right now how they want to on all issues because of the party politics. So if we have truly individual and independent people in our government who could freely vote for any vote anytime how they wanted to, that would be far more representative of the Canadian people than just 3 parties.
Now we're talking the same language.
I think we were talking the same language before.
We were, but
I think the parties got involved.
Well, I know, because the emphasis on the parties is not the way it should be. The emphasis should be on the individual and allowing and freeing up them to vote their conscience. And there is votes that the party says, hey, this is a vote your conscience thing.
That happens.
So it does happen. So ultimately, if you are a leader and you've put yourself forward to be a leader, the spirit of leadership is to think independently. you need to lead a coalition of people, because people all think differently, and they come from different backgrounds and different, economic situations or political situations, or, any of those things. So if you're a leader for all the people, that's what you're elected to do. You can have your, policies, and you can say, I think that, corporations should be taxed less because I think they create more jobs or whatever. And you can disagree with that, which is what I just said was total BS, that they don't do that. But you can go on the other side and you can say, well, let's support the people, and you give the money to the people, and then that's where they're going to be spending it and prospering, and you can't build your corporation on the backs of people. So these are different philosophies. So as a leader, you can pick and then let history tell whether it worked or it didn't work. Right. But as soon as you become, okay, you're now a Republican or a Democrat, or you're a liberal or conservative, then, that's who you are. Okay.
Right.
Then now you just got to toe the party line. And that is what destroys democracy, is that. Because then if your party gets co-opted by some, like fringe sort of segment where they just, hijack the whole policy.
Like a Tea Party or something.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're like, we need to end abortion, and we need to do all the stuff that is provably a setback, or, women can't vote anymore, or people of color can't vote, or any of the stuff. Like, it's regressive. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but unless you can really support up the individual in that leadership component and hold them to account as individuals, not to their party, then, and it used to be like that. There used to be way more independent thought, that the party actually had to behave, because you couldn't have these ideologues coming in and making these big waves, because every individual is going to have to go to their population and say, hey, this is, I don't agree with that, but I'm going to do this. And it's like, no, you're not. You're going to just agree with them because that's what, history has told me. Or are you going to think independent and force them not to be doing these things that affect you? Like, if you want true independent leadership, like, look what's happening in the US right now. Everybody just bending the knee to this freaking dumbass. Right? Like, he is arguably dumb. Like, you can jump through whatever maze of intellect you want to do to try to justify this stuff. The guy's just an idiot.
No, he passed all those tests.
Yeah. And he has to tell you he's passed the test 3 or 4 or 5 times, which any cognitive test you can only take once every period of time, because you start memorizing it. Plus, why are you bragging about taking a cognitive test?
And
why are you getting a cognitive test?
Right? Yeah. For democracy, there's many different versions of democracy. There's not one democracy. I mean, the idea of democracy is people being led by the people.
Yeah.
Right? There's an ancient Greek kind of democracy where democracy comes from.
Yeah.
And one version of old Greek democracy is like jury duty. It's a lottery.
And,
and that is truly independent. And what that does, and why I like that model, I don't think it would work right now, but in principle, I like the idea, because it cuts out the reason why a lot of people get into politics to begin with. There are high-minded individuals in politics who are there to do God's work for the people, right?
Yeah.
There are those people. But you also get full-time career politicians who aren't in it for that. They're in it because they see all the benefits that they can have. They like the lifestyle. They like the perks. They like the jobs you can get once you're done. And when you turn it into like a jury system where you're told for the next 2-3 years, you're in charge of this part of your community, and you're expected to be there.
Yeah.
That takes out all pretense of how politics becomes corrupt, I think.
Yeah. No.
And if you take that out, then you take out all the lobbyists who all of a sudden lose their power, and then the corporations then aren't being inflated and so influential. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea that needs to be talked about because it brings up the problems that we're facing now, and the fact that we don't really need those problems. That might not be the solution.
Yeah.
I actually don't think it is.
Yeah.
But it really does bring to the surface all the problems and the corruption, the ugliness of politics today.
Yeah.
Because politics shouldn't be ugly. It's about people, and people are not ugly, and
Yeah.
our goals should be fairly consistent. Like, we all want to be happy and healthy and have shelter and food. I
Yeah.
mean, those are all things, and prosperity, and we want to enjoy our life and
Yeah.
be
Freedom.
and be
Yeah.
thankful for all that,
Yeah.
right? Those are all common things, but that none of those are being addressed by politicians these days.
Well,
I
I think it's down to interpretation, because one person's freedom is another person's prison. And when you're told that you're being oppressed and you're being this and they're taking your rights away, like, travel to a different jurisdiction and you can really see what people's rights are being taken away. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
it's
if
sort of
you
like,
even go to England and see how many people are being charged and arrested for their
Sure.
social media posts,
sure.
despite what you might think of what they're saying, they still have the right to say it. And I mean, that
I guess the
threads the needle of
well,
free speech.
you have to, the problem with it is, like, and we got to wrap up because
Is it that time
yeah,
already?
we just,
Oh my God.
I don't see our clock. Oh, we're at 1 hour. Oh, then we got 1 hour. Okay, yeah,
Yay.
we're approaching our time.
We've done really well for not having an idea what we were.
We
talk
do.
about
We did
today,
have an
huh?
idea. Don't let anybody tell you that we did it.
I mean, we were so well prepared for this. I can't believe we kept it so on track.
on point topic. But when it comes down to what's best for one person may not be the best for the other person, and also depending on where they're getting that information. So I think when in this day and age of technology, now we've got AI, bro. Like, you literally can just type in whatever you want and it'll just produce whatever. And
Well, that's it. You
and
type
whether
in
it's
whatever
true or
you
not,
want, and it will produce whatever is
Yeah.
exactly right.
and
produce
also, depends on what you think or what you fed into it and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's open, this whole thing. So what you need to do, in my opinion, is you need to go back to the basics and say, how do we protect the individual? Like, how does that work? So when you look at, what you can say on social media, you can't say on social media. The problem with social media is that you can do it under any name, any fabrication. There's no accountability. These people have abdicated their rights under the idea of free speech
Absolutely.
to not monitor just crappy behavior. Like, you shouldn't be able to target people. You shouldn't be able to do it anonymously. You shouldn't be able to, whatever your name is, there is your name, like, full stop. And then whatever you say, you got to be held to account because.
Well, if you say something that's illegal,
Sure.
then you need to be held. To
Yeah,
account
but you
for it,
cannot also, something that you wouldn't say to someone's face, you can't say on social media. You shouldn't be able to
Right.
say on social media because there needs to be repercussions. But when you're protecting the corporation from liability around that, then all of a sudden you've lost the plot.
Yeah.
Because the corporation is not an individual. The people that make up that ecosystem, whether it be Facebook or Instagram and the consolidation of all these platforms under one power and then no oversight, and that they can just pay their way to get whatever politician they want to agree with whatever they need, is the problem with democracy, is the problem with all of it. And we as individuals can decide who we're going to support. And guess what? Don't support them. You want to see how quick things change? Is when you stop that money flow,
Yeah.
it's going to change, like, real quick.
Well, I am not in the favor of people being arrested for what they say on social media. I am also really more not in favor of social media platforms that allow anyone to say anything they want.
Yeah. Or could
Which-
suppress information. Like, people, how much information is being suppressed from what's going on in the Middle East right now? Like, like in North America. I'll give you the prime example.
Yeah, please.
There's a documentary about Benjamin Netanyahu called The Bibi Files. You cannot get it in North America. I downloaded it in France when I was in France, and I watched it. And it is shocking,
Really?
the information that's in
you have
that.
to send it to me.
I can't because you can't access it from North America. So I watched it in France.
Oh, you watch it in France.
Yeah. So you can't. You might be able to
can't-
find pirate. Like, I haven't gone into the well, but if you Google, if you go on YouTube, go Bibi Files. Pretty sure you're not going to be able to get it.
Wow, amazing.
So, but you can get
Challenge
it in
for all our
France.
listeners.
Yeah, and it is is an independent journalist that did it in Israel. They're renowned for their independence, and it is shocking what he got away with, and basically created a war for. And the information in there is like he's been funding Hamas to the tune of millions and millions and millions of dollars. Israel has.
That
Netanyahu has.
That sounds like what
through
Americans
Qatar.
have done for
Yeah.
decades.
So not having access to the information, allowing leaders to create wars for distractions, just like with the Epstein files.
Yeah.
But there's more than enough information in there to charge people, to investigate further, do all that kind of stuff. It's like blatant. And when you ignore that, this is the erosion of democracy. You can have whatever idea, you can have your constitution, you can have your separations of power, but unless you actually hold true to that, all of it else is noise. Like you've just given up. Like there is no independence, there is no democracy. All of it is gone. And as soon as one of those guardrails fail, which it already has numerous times, you're done. Because now all of a sudden that sets the precedent. Yeah. And now where we are, there's no accountability.
And
so the system's there.
It feels like we are flailing in what used to be democracy that's now changing, and it doesn't feel very democratic anymore.
No.
I want every vote to count for one vote. I want independent thinkers and no party politics.
Yeah.
And no
let people move to parties without gaslighting them. Right? Because if there's a time and a place, and if you are going to pick an issue that is going to divide people, I'm going to shut you off right now. Because guess what? There's enough issues that bring us together. Why do you need to tear us apart? Like, why do you need to pick the one thing that's going to divide when you could actually just get on the program and basically support what is knowingly, like diversifying our trade is going to make us stronger. Full stop. So why gaslight our prime minister when he's going around the world making deals to diversify from the United States? The reality is the United States is not a trusted partner, period. Yep. So we can't live in a world where we think they are, because you're basically just playing to them to take you over. So guys and girls, let's just think independently, stop gaslighting. You know, you can use your voice and your difference of opinions for good to get balance in there. So if it's to do with whatever bill and it's overreaching and all this stuff, you're not going to get there by, talking about something way over here that enrages people. You're going to get there by actually talking about an issue and making it better and being willing to work with the governing party to get there. Because that's the way it used to happen. Mm-hmm. And, we've so far removed from that because of this tribalism, and now it becomes a sport. And it gets down to zero sum. And zero sum is not how you live. It's how you compete in a sporting event.
You win or you lose.
You win or you lose.
Yeah.
Life is not about winning or losing. There's literally like degrees of difference of outcomes regardless of what party you choose.
Sure.
Right? Or you can think there's huge differences and you can create all this turmoil and trauma and then push people to the fringes where everything needs to be managed in the middle. The fringes have done nothing. They can influence the middle, right? But they should be off. And now we've got fringe groups left and right battling for power. And none of it is based on what's best for the community.
Yeah, it's not helpful.
It's not helpful. No.
Not helpful.
Let's just get down with the community.
Yeah.
And with that,
take care of yourself, take care of your family.
Yeah. Think about, I'm going to plant a garden. So
you should see all my seedlings.
I can't even imagine.
Oh my God, I'll bring you pictures.
Yeah. Well, I'll draw on you once I get it going. I just need to redo my yard.
Dude, as soon as my seedlings are grown up, I have way too many. You can have as many plants as you want.
I love it.
Yeah,
so it could be a green thumb.
Yeah. Wow. Dirty, greasy thumbs right now.
I love it. All right. Well, I think we'll have a guest. I think Luke Murray from Arise will be with us next Wednesday.
Nice.
We'll talk a little bit about development. He's a bit of a polarizing figure in some aspects. There's he's in the developer side, but he's got a very social. I've worked a bunch of social things with him as far as community givebacks, which I think is good. So
we got to give back to our community.
Yeah.
That's what politics is supposed to be about.
Exactly.
Giving back
betterment,
to our community.
Betterment of our community.
Yeah, it should be an unpaid job.
Yeah. We can all do it by donation.
That's right. That's right. All right, Kaylin. Wow.
Thanks, Sam.
Great week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy the sun. Get some vitamin D.
Remember to be kind.
Be nice.
Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-Inspired Catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.